But as we move along in this challenge of trying to liberate the Palestinians, we find that more so we have to escalate our level of determination in order to contend with the type of challenges that has befalling us here. Number one, it's very painstakingly that I share with you that Manda Banella has been inducted from the flotilla. Another 3 ships, I've been just told, have also been inducted and detoured. So they are facing an onslaught from the Zionist Israeli regime. They require us to lift up our hands and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just to save them, but to make their trip a one that has been that is not going to be futile, that they in fact will pave the way for future progress in our attempts to liberate the Palestinians and to end the expansionist theory of the Israeli government. Inshallah. As I said, our 2 guests have been constantly conducting interviews at the back, and I didn't feel it appropriate to continue with our planned conversation without them having had something, and I think they should be ready within the foreseeable 4 to 5 minutes. I do want to thank you for your indulgence, for your patience, forbearance in affording us these extra few minutes. But I do think as host of our guests, it was important that they do enjoy a meal, even if it was for 5 minutes.
When you want to beat me, I can beat you.
Remember, your questions are most needed and welcome. The number is 067 279 4387.
Yeah, he has a page that he's Palestinian films in. I want to talk about that.
Our sister wants to make a brief announcement, but I also want to take the opportunity, as I've been walking around, I've been introduced to a number of Palestinian people. With my hand on my heart, I do welcome all the Palestinian people that are here. We stand with you, we stand beside you, and we will continue to pray for and with you. I give you Sister Yumna Al-Sayed.
Hello again, everyone. Here tonight with us is a very dear friend of mine. He's like a small brother to me. Muhammad Al-Wadiya. Stand up. Muhammad is a young man. He comes from Gaza as well. He was a neighbor. The entire family is a friend of our entire family. Muhammad now lives in South Africa for the past year, and currently he has decided to start his new business. It's an online business. So Muhammad exports Palestinian thobes that are handmade from Jordan through, of course, East Jerusalem and Jordan, and sells them here in South Africa. He's trying to build a life. Of course, half of Muhammad's family, more than half, are still in Gaza. Some of them have managed to escape to Egypt with us while Muhammad made his way here. So I just want to tell you about the page where he sells his Palestinian thobes. He also has actually a partner who's South African with him as well. And their page is called pal_roots. It's for very authentic, very chic and elegant handmade embroidery Palestinian thobes. So please, you can find their page on Instagram. I hope you follow it, and if you feel like you want to wear something that's authentically Palestinian, do order from their page. Thank you.
young Shabudin Bikari. All right. Can we have some silence, please? Just very briefly before we start the conversation. The announcements once again. Mustafa Barghouti at Gaithel Mosque for the pre-khutbah talk on the 3rd of October. The topic being the Gaza plan, peace plan or a scheme for submission. It's a very loaded topic, ladies and gentlemen, so please endeavor your best to attend. As I said, the topic is peace plan or a scheme for submission. That's number one. Number two, your questions once again, I repeat, most welcome and we're looking forward to them. The WhatsApp number is 067 279 4387, and our young men are actively going around trying to facilitate your contribution towards the cause. And don't forget, the puzzle outside, the 3 Haram Sharifs, a 1,000-word puzzle for only 350 Rand. Can I now have the pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to call upon our distinguished, while Jeremy Corbyn is still busy, or rather Dr. Barghoti is still busy conducting the interview, or rather the podcast, we've decided for the expedience of time to continue with the program. For the time being, I have the pleasure to call upon it is my distinct honor and pleasure to invite on stage Brother Jeremy Corbyn to please take his seat on stage. The moderator for the evening is our diminutive, able, white-haired Mr. Shabuddin Rumane. And the moment Mr. Dr. Barghouti is done with the interview, he will join us. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure to once again welcome the listeners of Radio 76. This is a live broadcast on the frequency as well. We are being live broadcast on the Hilaal TV YouTube channel. A warm welcome to our viewers and our listeners. I hand you over to the able Mr. Shabuddin Rumane, our moderator for the night.
Good evening, everyone. I don't think we should be wasting time. I think there's so much happening outside. I had a bank of questions that I thought I should start with. There's an emergency that we're experiencing at this point in time. I think it's perhaps prudent that we start talking about what's happening with the Samud flotilla, if that's okay with you. So welcome once again, Jeremy, and thank you so much for your time. We really are, I think, probably all of us here would agree, not probably, I think all of us would agree that you have a following that perhaps you didn't realize you have in South Africa. And the support that we had from people the moment we started to talk about having you with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We were sold out, and people opened their hearts and continue to do so, I'm sure, and I'm confident that we probably will raise another 250,000 rands this night, today, for Palestine. So I thought, whilst I had prepared some questions, I think there's an emergency that we perhaps need to canvass and discuss at this point in time, and I think I would love to know, we shared earlier on communication between a dear friend of yourself who's on the flotilla, one of the ships at this point in time in the Mediterranean, approaching Gaza. Perhaps your comments, please.
The flotilla has now been intercepted by the Israeli Navy, and as I understand it, Mustafa may have something even more up to date than I've had. I got communications from a friend of mine who's on one of the vessels. The last message he sent to me was that the Israeli forces were about to intercept and board his vessel. So he threw his phone in the sea. And that was the last message I got from him. So we don't know what will happen to him or the other people on that vessel. I just did an interview, as Mustafa has also, with Al Jazeera. And they asked me a fundamental question. What right does Israel have to intercept and attack an unarmed vessel in international waters when there's no crime, no act of aggression has taken place. And that, of course, is the way in which Israel behaves. The Italian unions have already said they're now calling for a strike on Friday in Italy for all workers to cease work that day in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the flotilla. And so well done the Italian workers. And I have just sent a message immediately to the British Foreign Secretary, we've just done it outside here now, demanding that my government intervene immediately, because the vessel that my friend was on is actually a British registered vessel. Therefore, they have a special responsibility to protect British registered vessels. If a foreign army, a foreign navy, in the case of Israel, attacks a British registered vessel, that is a matter for the government to take up immediately with Israel.
Absolutely.
Therefore, I've demanded that take place.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's important that we express our solidarity with these very brave people that have gone on the flotilla. And but most of all will probably add to this. The question I asked was, what do I think will happen to those people? I think they'll be arrested, I think they'll be very badly treated, and I think they'll probably be held in prison. I spoke at length with my friend Chris Smalls from the United States. He's a union leader from Amazon workers and others. He was in Belgium at an event I was at with him quite recently, and I said, what happened? He said, well, most nationals, their embassies came immediately to the detention centre and demanded their release. And that didn't get their immediate release, but it did mean they were given food, they were given water, they were treated better. Chris was completely ignored by the US Embassy. They didn't go anywhere near it, didn't support him at all. And he said his treatment was appalling. He's a black American, and he said it was very racist, the way he was treated. And he said the only time the treatment of him started to get less bad was when thousands and thousands of people all around the world started emailing, demanding, sending letters and everything else to Israeli forces to try and ensure that all of them were well treated. And so I would say to everybody here, make your feelings known, inundate the relevant authorities with demands that these people not be arrested and not be taken into custody. What crime have they committed? Taking food to starving people, taking baby food to infants whose mothers are so emaciated they can't produce milk. That is a crime. This is beyond obscene. Let's show some real solidarity with those brave people on the flotilla and obviously with the incredibly brave people of Gaza.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Dr. Barghoti, your comments?
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming tonight. It's such a pleasure to meet with all of you. And thank you for the support you are giving to Palestine. We really appreciate that. I'm sorry I was late for you because I was in contact with the people like jermy on the ships. And also I had to speak about what's happening on Al Jazeera as well. I think, and just for your information, the Israeli army already attacked 3 of the ships. And is now trying to order all the 45 ships to go to Israel, to be arrested. And what they are doing is a very grave violation of international law, because they are attacking the ships in international waters.
Yeah.
These ships are not in Israeli waters. Anyhow, they shouldn't be called Israeli waters. They are Palestinian waters. And even they were sailing not to the so-called Israel. They were sailing to Gaza. So Israel has no right whatsoever to do what it's doing to these ships. But Israel is dragging itself now into confrontation. Imagine, into confrontation with 50 countries. By their actions, these people on the flotilla are from 50 different countries, including the United States, including Britain, including all European countries, including some Arab countries even. And that widens practically the confrontation. It's not just with the Palestinian people, it's with the world. And this is exactly what we want. I was, by the way, on one of the very first ships that went to Gaza in 2000, first time when the idea of flotilla started. And then we managed to reach Gaza. We broke the siege from Gaza 4 times.
Was that not the time when a few people killed?
No, before.
Before.
The Marmara came long time after. We started in 2009 and 2010. And we managed to reach Gaza. I was on the ship that reached Gaza 4 times, and then on the 5th time they destroyed the ship. And then came Marmara, and now we see this international wonderful participation. So, for people to understand what's the principle of these ships, it's about the idea of what we call popular resistance. With popular resistance, the ultimate goal of your action, and you've done that in South Africa against apartheid so many times, you put your enemy in a situation, like when you play chess, you want to put your enemy in a situation of checkmate. If they attack the flotilla, they lose because they are aggravating the whole world against them. If they don't attack the flotilla, they also lose because you reach the people of Gaza. This is the idea of popular resistance, and that's why it's so valuable. So when Israel attacks the people and arrests them and do what they do, they are practically, the people are achieving their goal of besieging Israel. Israel is not besieging them, they are besieging Israel in a heroic manner. And this way, in my opinion, this is a great achievement, like we have done before with our demonstrations against the apartheid wall, like we have done when we went to pray in Jerusalem. I was born in Jerusalem, by the way. I worked in Jerusalem as medical doctor for 15 years. And since 2005, they prevent me from going to Jerusalem. In Ramadan, it's easier to get to Jerusalem. So what we do, we sneak in without permit. And you put them again in front of a dilemma. If they arrest you, they expose themselves. If they don't arrest you, you reach the people of Al-Quds and you reach Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the kind of the philosophy of popular resistance, which is very important.
Jeremy, we're talking about international law. It doesn't apply to Israel. The fact that we say that these are international waters, the fact that they have been destroying Gaza at this point in time, murdering people within the West Bank, as we now know, the numbers are conflicting at this point in time. I've heard they've been destroyed about 2,500, 3,000 people in the West Bank at this point to be murdered. International law does not apply to Israel as we speak. So they would have a right, in quotes, to do what they continue to do in Gaza and in the West Bank, to attack the flotilla as they do. Your response?
Well, Israel pretends international law doesn't apply to it, but it does apply to everybody else. And Israel is in breach of the Fourth Geneva Convention on multiple counts over the treatment of people who are under occupation. They're in breach of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child by the imprisonment of children. They're in breach of the International Criminal Court. There's an arrest warrant out for anyone necessary. And there's plenty more. There's the ICJ and so on. International law only works if people abide by it, or if a people, I say a government, breaches international law, then there has to be a response. There has to be a response, and that response has to be it doesn't necessarily mean military action. It means diplomatic pressure, it means sanctions, it means isolation, it means all of those things. But Israel has been allowed to get away with breach after breach after breach for decades because other countries, principally the USA, but also most Western European countries, have maintained normal relations with Israel, normal trading relations with Israel. So Israel feels, well, there's no problem. We just carry on acting with impunity. Once you allow somebody to act with impunity, you know where that leads to.
All right, thank you so much.
May I?
You want to respond, please?
Look, what's happening now to Israel is that you have an unbelievable, unprecedented wave internationally of imposing sanctions on Israel. And this will increase. And boycott, divestment, sanctions is one of our main strategies to succeed in our struggle, like you did in South Africa. BDS was instrumental in bringing down the system of apartheid. And the world opinion is changing. One of the most interesting figures that I saw today, published by New York Times, is a new poll in the United States of America, which shows that 51%, more than 50% of Americans say now that the United States should stop supplying Israel with weapons and with military support. That's a big change. And it will affect the American establishment.
Of course.
But here in South Africa, also we think, we so much appreciate the fact that South African government took the avant-garde position in going to the International Court of Justice and supports us in the International Criminal Court. This is all wonderful. And it's taking very good positions internationally. But we need more, and what we need now in South Africa, first of all, I don't think South Africa should be a place that can allow any Israeli ambassador to be here. Second, I think it is unacceptable. I didn't know about that, but later I knew. It is not acceptable and should stop that South Africa provides Israel with coal. This has to stop. So in other words, we want to even appreciate South African position even more than we do by having true total economic boycott of Israel.
Thank you so much. Maybe just on the question of boycotting the companies that supply coal, I have a good authority that one of the senior fund managers at one of the asset managers in Cape Town did indicate that they were having major meetings with Glencore, which is the owner of the coal mines in South Africa, to tell them that if you don't stop, we need to withdraw funds from your business. Thank you. There's people talking amongst themselves. I think that's disrespectful. So please, let's do the right thing and be as silent as you possibly can. The term genocide is now before the International Court of Justice, and we now know that Erin Khan, for example, the director of the International Criminal Court, he's had his emails blocked. So, in the reference to my earlier comment about international law, it seems that there's a parallel law, road laws that are now in operation, that are unwritten, but applies only to America and Israel. Your comment?
Yes, you're correct that Israel has been taken to the ICJ by South Africa, and I congratulate South Africa on doing that and the quality of the presentation. It was absolutely brilliantly done. It was so impressive. And the interim opinion was given concerning the probability of acts of genocide taking place, and there is now a more detailed discussion going on. Interestingly, when South Africa took the case, They were denounced by the United States, by the UK, by France, I think, and many, many other countries, saying South Africa had no place accusing Israel of committing acts of genocide. They began to slightly moderate their language on this after the decision came out. They said the same about the case that went before the International Criminal Court against Netanyahu, that he should be granted immunity because he's a head of government. That was not granted, and the ICC issued the arrest warrant. And that was actually very, very helpful to us in Britain, who were campaigning, and still are and will always be, campaigning to end arms sales to Israel and all the other issues that we've mentioned. And so we raised the whole issue in Parliament about the ICC arrest warrant, and the government started off saying, well, it had to go through a legal process in Britain, therefore it didn't necessarily apply in Britain. That is actually factually, totally and completely wrong. It's not a pick and mix. If an ICC arrest warrant is issued and a country that is a signatory to the Rome Convention, which set up the ICC, they are obliged to undertake an arrest, whether they agree with it or not. They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice at all on this. And so we pressed the thing day after day in the British Parliament on what the government was going to do about this. And we finally got a statement that Netanyahu would not be able to come to Britain, and if he did, he would be arrested by the Metropolitan Police. And so we forced that out of the government, which means that Netanyahu, who used to be a very frequent visitor to Britain, he arrived before the last general election to say to the people of Britain that I should not be allowed to be Prime Minister. I don't know what business it is of Netanyahu who the British Prime Minister should be, but he took that upon himself. And so international law has to apply. But your question is a very fundamental one. If you think back over the history of the past half century or more, most international law comes from the end of the Second World War. There were some before that, but most of it comes from there. The various Geneva Conventions, as well as the international legal issues, the ICJ actually precedes that. And most of them rely on the cooperation of all countries to recognise that there are limits to what they can do, because they've signed up to the UN Charter and everything else. The one country in the world that seems to behave as though none of the things that they've signed up to actually apply to them. Israel is a member of the United Nations. Do they observe the UN Charter?
None of them.
No.
All five
and so
of
on.
them.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is all these issues. Now, are legal actions themselves going to bring an end to the occupation of Gaza and the West Bank? Most of them would probably agree with me on their own, no, but they are an important part of the political campaign, which then ramps up to BDS, boycott, divestment and sanctions, ramps up to isolation, ramps up to the end of the arms trade and sales with Israel. So it is, I think, important that we just use all these arguments to explain that Israel has turned itself into a pariah state. We used exactly the same arguments against the apartheid regime in South Africa, particularly when apartheid became more and more brutal and more repressive. It was always brutal and always repressive, but there were times when it got worse. And that turned South Africa into an isolated pariah state all around the world, and eventually that, together with the uprisings in South Africa, brought about the end of the apartheid regime. And I'm very confident that in the foreseeable future there will be big changes, there will be the rights of the Palestinian people respected, and it will be a victory for people all over the world that it's happened.
Thank you so much. Dr. Barghouti, you've been a long-standing advocate for Palestinian unity. In the face of the genocidal campaign, as we live stream across the world. The divisions between the West Bank and Gaza in particular, and between the political factions within the kind of milieu, the Palestinian milieu, seems more dangerous than ever. It's always been the Palestinian Authority and the others in a sense. What concrete immediate steps should now be taken, or can be taken for that matter, to forge a unified Palestinian national leadership to confront what can be an existential threat to the unity of the Palestinians?
We truly face an existential threat because the biggest danger that we face is that Israel is trying to cause a second Nakba, larger than the first one. And their main goal is ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, not only in Gaza, but also the West Bank. There is no division between West Bank and Gaza. We are one people.
Yes.
And we, for instance, the medical organization I am with, Palestinian Medical Relief Society, works in West Bank and in Gaza and in Jerusalem. So the people are one, they're not divided. There is political division, political factional division, which is caused by two problems, by two issues, if you allow me, or two reasons, if you want. The first reason was a difference about the political goal and the political program. Some people believe in negotiations and believed in Oslo Agreement. Others believe in resistance to end this terrible occupation. I am among those who opposed Oslo Agreement from the very right beginning because it was wrong. The other reason for the internal division was the struggle over the authority, who will be in charge of the so-called Palestinian Authority. And that was classical, that when there was one government in West Bank and another one in Gaza. Now, for the first reason of division, I don't see objectively any reason to be divided now, because one program, which is Oslo project, failed. And there were two illusions that prevailed in the Palestinian sphere that proved to be wrong. The first illusion is that the Zionist movement is ready for a compromise with the Palestinian people. And that compromise was called two-state solution and possibility of negotiations. This is all gone. What did we learn from what Israel is doing now is that they don't want this Zionist movement. This settler colonial project doesn't want compromise with the Palestinian people. They don't want two states. They don't want one state. What do they want? Ethnic cleansing. And what you see now in Israel is not just a Zionist, fierce system and movement. It's a fascist movement. Their behavior in Gaza is a fascist behavior. And also in the West Bank. So the first reason for division is over. The second reason for division is the is the struggle over who should be running the Palestinian Authority. Where is the Palestinian Authority? No, but Israel stripped away all the powers of the Palestinian Authority. In Gaza, you don't have a Palestinian Authority because it's under full occupation now. And West Bank is also under full occupation. So there is no, I'm sorry, it was a long answer, but I'm just wanted to explain. There is no reason for us to be divided. We have to be unified, and we have to have a unified leadership. How do we get there? I mediated personally between Fatah and Hamas in 2006 to create the National Unity Government. And I was the spokesperson of that National Unity Government, but it lasted only for 86 days because it was besieged by the West, it was besieged by the United States of America, and of course it was besieged by Israel. And we should not have allowed it to fall down. Now, how can we solve the solution today, now? Because this is the most urgent question. The answer is there. on the table. We went all the way to Beijing. You know, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, I will say it in Arabic, I hope you understand me. اطلبوا العلم ولو في الصين. You understand that? And we said اطلبوا الوحدة ولو في الصين. Ask for unity even in China. So we went all the way to Beijing and we had a very good meeting of 14 Palestinian groups. And we came up with a very good program called Beijing Declaration. I personally drafted it. And we had with us our brothers from Hamas and from Fatah, and everybody signed that declaration. What does it say? It says the establishment of an independent national consensus government for both West Bank and Gaza. Second, it says there should be a unified Palestinian leadership that includes everybody. And it says that the transitional national consensus government, which consists of independence, will prepare the ground after 1 year of reconstruction of Gaza for free democratic elections. That's the solution, especially now. And I said, even the Palestinian Authority should be interested in that, because they're not only trying to marginalize Hamas, they're trying to marginalize also the Palestinian Authority completely. And this arrangement that is suggested for Gaza of bringing an American, British, colonial ruling of our people in Gaza is absolutely rejected. And the best answer to that is to say, we haven't, dear brothers and sisters, we did not struggle for 100 years against British colonialism first, and then against Israeli occupation, to be ruled by Tony Blair, for God's sake. So the best answer to that, if they listen to us, and I hope they listen to us, is to immediately engage in implementation of this Beijing Declaration. And at the end of the day, let's remember that we, the Palestinian people, were prevented and deprived from our democratic right of electing our leaders for 20 years. We have the right to choose our leaders freely and democratically, like everybody else.
When Gordon called as the Prime Minister in 1928, he designed what was then called the Plan Dalit, Plan D, which calls for a de-Arabization of the whole of what was then around Palestine. Are they not putting that into place?
Sorry?
De-Arabize. Exclude everybody, drive them into the desert, which is what we are witnessing at this point in time. So no matter what transpires internally, their objective is to de-Arabize what they now believe is their country, which is now called Israel.
Exactly, and that's why Netanyahu came to power. This man doesn't believe in anything called compromise. He came to power to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. He belongs to the camp of Jabotinsky, who believed that there should be no solution with Palestinians or Arabs, and who believed that they should all be kicked out of Palestine.
Exactly.
And there was a campaign of criticism against Ben-Gurion, even after he died. How did he allow the 150,000 Palestinians who remained in 1948 areas to stay? Although he put them, by the way, under military rule, under military governor till 1966. Now they blame him because the 150,000, in my opinion, heroic Palestinians who stayed are now 2 million people. And the reality is that you have on the land of historic Palestine now, regardless of the fact that 7.5 million of our Palestinian brothers and sisters are refugees forced to be outside Palestine. There are now at the moment on the land of historic Palestine 7.3 million Palestinians versus 7.1 million Jewish people. We're more than them. Although they have the ability to bring them Jewish people from everywhere in the world. And although they prevent our 7.5 million Palestinians from coming back home. Regardless of that, we are still now more than the majority. So what's the solution for them? 2 states they don't accept, 1 state they don't accept, and I personally prefer 1 democratic state, by the way. Of course. They don't accept this and they don't accept that. So what's their solution? Exactly what you have just said. The application of Gabotensky theory of total ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And I promise you, they will fail. We will not leave whatever it is.
Jeremy, thank you so much, Dr. Barghoti. The so-called the so-called Trump peace plan. Really wants a foreign minister.
What do you call it? A dark plan?
The Trump peace plan was widely seen as a blueprint for what now we now know in South Africa in particular, a Pakistan-style permanent party state within for Palestinians in particular. Well, the current Israeli government have explicitly endorsed it as the only framework for the solution because they accepted, they kind of signed most of the clauses in that so-called peace plan. Does this prove that the two-state solution is now functionally dead and that the international community must instead rally around a single, democratic, secular state with equal rights for everyone going forward?
Well, surely the fundamental issue is that Israel occupies Gaza and the West Bank, yes. The appointment of Commissar Blair, or Viceroy Blair as we should call him, to run Gaza is ridiculous and absurd, but actually very much part of the Israeli plan, because as must have pointed out several times today, there is no guarantee of Israeli withdrawal in all this. They maintain their right to stay there in Gaza. That is obviously a serious problem. They claim that there's going to be this international body, temporary body, unspecified how long it's going to be, that will administer Gaza, led by Tony Blair. Well, actually, it's going to be led by Donald Trump, but he hasn't got time to do everything, apparently. So he's going to employ Tony Blair to do it for him. So he's like a sort of subaltern. It's subaltern Blair who's acting on behalf of Trump in Gaza. And I suspect that what's behind it all is actually, once again, the Trump-Netanyahu Riviera plan, where you get rid of the population of Gaza, move them south, keep on moving, get them to move away, and start the development of the real estate and everything else. It's happening before our very eyes. That's the bombardment that's going on. And when the plan says that the people of Palestine, i.e. Gaza, are free to leave if that's what they want to do, it sounds to me like they're going to be literally forced through the gates in Rafah into Egypt or somewhere else, unless the Israeli government buys enough space to force them to go to around the world. Must have managed to prevent the Indonesian government doing a deal with Israel to take a very large number of Palestinians. Israel is trying to persuade South Sudan to take a large number of Palestinians to live there. And indeed, the Israeli government has shown an extraordinary interest in funding everything that goes on in South Sudan. What is all that about, other than trying to get rid of the Palestinian population and depopulate? They're also doing the same on the West Bank in a different degree, partly by the aggressive settlement policy, and the settlements are not little settlements, they're huge, they're towns, they're cities, and so on. And so what is the future? Well, the Western European countries keep on saying the only game in town is the two-state solution. I personally do not use those words. I do not say that because I don't think it is the business of the West to decide on that. Ultimately, I agree with the points that Mustafa has made. Remember, it wasn't always like this. Under the Ottoman, Palestine was there as part of the Ottoman Empire. The end of the First World War, when the Ottoman Empire was disintegrated, the lines were drawn on the maps, Syria, Lebanon, etc., all those straight lines. Borders are not naturally straight lines, but these ones are. And Britain was given the mandate, and indeed suppressed and repressed what they termed Arab nationalism all that time. Many were killed by the British Army in the 1936 uprising and on many other occasions as well. And Britain then withdrew, and the Nakba took place. 700,000 people expelled, never to return, and their descendants living in Gaza or in the refugee camps. But the other point I just want to finish on this is the cultural aspect of it. Because if you are to persuade a nation, a country, to do what Israel has done towards the Palestinian people and gain approval from your people in doing so, i.e. in this case, the citizens of Israel, then you've got to dehumanize the people that you're oppressing. It is all about taking away their cultural identity, their abilities, their lives, their poetry, their art, their music, their culture, their history, and sort of basically write them out of history. And this has happened time after time. It's what empires and colonies do, which is why it's so important what you're doing in building solidarity with the moral high ground of South Africa having thrown off apartheid for the Palestinian people, and showcasing, putting up front, putting on stage the Palestinian culture, Palestinian history, and Palestinian people. Once they're allowed to be dehumanized into second and third class citizens, then that's when the military occupations take over. So solidarity with the Palestinian people is essential, and it's not a colony to be reoccupied or occupied or administered. It's a place that they should be withdrawing from to allow the people of Palestine to decide their own future and their own organisation of government.
Thank you. This is a question from one of our guests here tonight. We met his son Ara at the screening of Tomorrow's Freedom, where he shared about his fathers, that's Dr. Marwan Barghouti, who's known as Palestinian Mandela. 50 years of struggle against the Israeli occupation is negotiating for his release, part of Hamas's future plans.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Whoever's here, I asked how I understand the question. We met his son Ara, who's Ara? Is it the name?
Yeah? Okay, yes.
Okay, Marwan's son. Is Ara, is that correct?
Yeah.
At the screening of Tomorrow's Freedom, we shared about his father's incarceration for 50 years. He's been struggling against the occupation. Is negotiating for his release from Hamas's future plans, do you think?
Well, the name of Marwan, like many other leaders, Palestinian leaders like Ahmed Saadat, who's the leader of the PFLP, and like Abdullah Barghouti, who is sentenced to 67 life sentences. And many others were on top of the list of the prisoners exchange. And each time there was an exchange of prisoners, Israel obstructed their release. And you've seen how this fascist Israeli minister, Ben-Gvir, did when he went to Marwan's cell and tried to embarrass him, but he eventually embarrassed himself, this fascist minister. So there is pressure to have them released. I think Marwan is a very good leader, and if he is released, he will help us all achieve Palestinian internal unity, because he is a man that believes in Palestinian unity. and he's an important leader of Fatah. This could take Fatah in the right course as well. So we hope this will happen, but I'm still not sure, because I think the Israelis will do everything they can to prevent that from happening, because they don't want us to be unified and they don't want us to be together. But Marwan's voice is very important, and even when he is in prison, his voice is with us. And his people we are cooperating with his people very well. Most recently, we had a very important meeting in which his supporters participated. I do believe that everybody who participated in this national struggle understands now how important is to have this Palestinian unity. And I hope he will be released, because his release will really help Palestinian struggle a lot.
With this global alliance for Palestine that is being built before our very eyes, it's the unity of the protest, it's the unity of the spirit, it's the unity of the Palestinian diaspora. I think it would be very good if we could do far more to emphasize the plight of long-term prisoners in Israel. Obviously, Marwan Barghouti is the prime example of it, and that gives us a focal point and a figure to campaign around. And that is quite important, because we're discussing this at the university this afternoon, that getting support for any campaign requires it to be a personal interest, a political interest, and so on. And I think that is an important aspect of what we're campaigning on. The other thing, which, in case there isn't a question about it, is the sporting boycott of Israel, and make sure that Israel is not allowed to play in international football or any other international sport at all. Help to isolate them as rapidly as we can.
By the way, I've just received information that the Israeli army arrested Mandla Mandela from the ship he is on.
I think Mandela will handle them.
And there is a big demonstration now taking place in Brussels at this moment against this attack on the flotilla.
Excellent.
Has he been taken ashore, or is he on the vessel?
They already caught 3 ships, and they're trying to attack the others.
And make them go ashore in Israel? Okay.
I think we've seen a clip of Fatima Hendricks, our very own Fatima Hendricks, on the flotilla. She's already been like, there's a good chance that they might need to jump if the occasion requires it. This is probably an important question. Given the number of journalists who've been killed recently, I think our sister Yumna alluded to this quite a few occasions, and being a journalist herself, something like 250 journalists have been murdered. Shouldn't we be protesting more at mainstream media for the biased reporting and legitimizing the genocide? BBC, CNN, Fox, etc. And sometimes even our very own SABC.
Yes, because killing a journalist is actually a war crime, because the journalists quite rightly, have a special status in that they're supposed to be allowed to move around to report what is going on. In fact, there are not many international journalists in Gaza. The bravery of the Palestinian journalists is immense, and that is the only way we know so much of what's happening in Gaza is because of the bravery of Palestinian journalists, many of whom are not being paid, many of whom have provided stories for other channels and so on, and then have paid the ultimate price. There are hundreds that have already been killed. Is absolutely disgusting, disgraceful, is itself a war crime. I think we should also say thank you to those brave journalists that have stayed, that have reported, that have carried on working under the most immensely difficult circumstances, even when their own families have been killed, and have some regard and respect to the way in which Al Jazeera has tried to report everything that's going on in Gaza and has been a very important voice around the rest of the world. The other channels that have BBC, CNN, etc., that have not covered themselves in glory in the coverage of all this, and keep on. For example, even when there's casualty figures read out on the BBC News, they always preface it by saying, "and the Hamas-run health authority claims." But in fact, the UN has confirmed the accuracy of the figures that have been given by the Gaza Health Ministry, and the way in which the probability is the death toll is far, far higher than the 60,000 that we know of. Again, that is just not accepting what ought to be the norm of journalism, that you're able to work in a safe way. Look at the way they have murdered so many individuals by assassinating them. Shireen is the prime example, who was actually assassinated for her reporting.
Yes, absolutely. And Shireen is very popular here in this mural in Salford, one of the suburbs not far from here, where the organization, the Heritage Society, had actually put her image on a massive wall in one of the suburbs. So just very quickly, two-part question, Dr. Barghoti. Is there an actual count of how many Zionist soldiers have been killed by now? And two, do you believe that any nation will intervene militarily? Especially our brothers and sisters amongst the Arab nations.
What was the first question, sorry?
Sorry. It's actually very, very serious. Do we know how many Zionist soldiers have actually been killed? And two, do you believe that any nation would perhaps find the strength to intervene militarily? Overtures over the years, threatened, etc., etc., but never. He still supplies steel and chemicals to Israel.
Okay, let me first give you the breaking news. There is another demonstration now in Rome, Italy, against the attack on the flotilla happening.
Excellent. Come on, people.
Second,
Come on, people.
the Colombian president have just declared that he cut off all commercial relations with Israel, and he asked, he decided to kick out tonight the Israeli diplomatic mission.
Come on, South Africa. Come on, South Africa. I think we've got some very senior ANC people.
And
please take note.
regarding your question, there is more than 930 Israeli soldiers have been killed up till now. I don't know what will be the number by tomorrow morning, but probably it will be different. And the total number of Israeli soldiers who were injured or who will not be able to function due to psychological reasons is more than 40,000. And just to give you an idea that, just compare that, 930 in fighting with a small group of resistance, basically, in comparison to what Israel has as a huge army. 930 versus 630 Israeli soldiers who were killed when they defeated 3 Arab armies in 1967. That gives you an idea about the difference. Now about your question, the provocative question about the armies. I don't think any army will come to fight Israel. And we don't ask armies to come and fight Israel. I spoke since October 7th, almost every week. I demanded that the Arab and Muslim countries not to send armies to fight Israel, because I'm realistic enough to understand that this is not going to happen. But I always demanded that they would send a humanitarian convoy with the flags and foreign ministers of 57 Muslim and Arab countries to break the siege in Gaza. I think had they done that in the very first beginning of the siege in Gaza, the whole course of things would have changed. Unfortunately, they didn't. They had 3 big summits up till now. And in each summit, when they were held, the last one I went myself to Qatar there to be close to them. And we also demanded that at least the 57 Arab and Muslim countries will take a decision to boycott Israel and to impose sanctions on Israel. And for those countries who dare to normalize with this genocidal regime, to cancel the agreements of normalization. At least this should happen, you know. It didn't happen. And, but I'm telling you, the peoples of the Arab world, the peoples of the Muslim countries are all with us. They're all with us.
Except the leaders.
And unfortunately, and I know very well, why do we have changes now happening in Europe so rapidly, even at the level of governments? Because when you have a functioning democracy, the opinion of the people matters, and they can change course. Still, I believe that we are now, Israel is in a situation where without American support, everything will fall apart. And the pressure to demand, I mean, we don't want them to send armies, but we will continue to demand and increase the pressure to have full boycott, divestment, sanctions on Israel.
Thank you so much. We have a question, somebody, Sheikh Riyad has got the mic at the back. Sheikh Riyad, short and sharp, please. Can we activate the mic, please? Please.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening to everybody.
Islam.
Riyad Rules, I'm a local imam and presenter of Palestine, the Holy Land, which is a program on Hilaal TV advocating for a free Palestine. Firstly, to the Honourable Jeremy Corbyn, you sir are a very dim light, well, a bright light, but you're a very lonely light in the complicity of the Western leaders in this genocide. And we are very proud of all the effort that you have put in as an activist for a free Palestine. But the question I want to pose to you is, why do the broader English leadership as well as the broader English community, why do they struggle to recognize the right of the Palestinians to exist? What we hear coming from the ordinary people at grassroots level on the ground is when they speak about Hamas, which by the way is just an Arabic acronym, Al-Harakat al-Muqawamah al-Islamiyya, it's just an Islamic resistance movement. You have Izzuddin al-Qassam in 1935, who was martyred. You had many other resistance groups over the years. Hamas only started in 1987. I mean, I was reading the other day that when William the Conqueror, after the Battle of Hastings in 1066, there was an uprising from the Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian leaders in the north. And William the Conqueror put down that resistance with such brutality that there was a genocide of 100,000 people that were killed. I mean, during the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, there were 2 Jewish resistance groups, the ZOB and the ZZW. And the Nazis totally, literally leveled the Warsaw Ghetto, and the survivors were taken off to Treblinka and put in the gas chambers. What is the problem in the Western world that they can't recognize and acknowledge the right of the Palestinians to resist, to stand up and fight, something that is enshrined in international law? And if I can just say that we would like to see your good self uniting all of the opposition in Westminster to eventually put an end to the yoke of international Zionism that is controlling both the Labour and Conservative parties.
Thank you. Excellent question.
Thanks for the question. Thanks for your comments. There is a whole British record of imperialism, which we know very well all over the world, and there's also this refusal to recognise that somehow or other British imperialism wasn't like anybody else's. It was kind of nice, whereas the others were all bad. It's utter and total nonsense. The slave trade, the brutality of the oppression of uprisings in the Caribbean and virtually every African colony, and the more recent brutality in Malaya in 1945, the abominable brutality in Kenya in 1956 against the Mau Mau, and this sort of idea that somehow or other it's okay. You're right about the genocides that have been committed around the world, and this is one that's going on at the moment. But there's always been, in the sort of British psyche and culture, something that is very unpleasant about the Middle East and about Palestinians. I'm not saying it's with everybody, it isn't, but it's certainly there. I read a whole lot of reports and discussions of what was going on in cabinet, in the Labour Party, in other parties in the 1940s surrounding the establishment of the State of Israel. And the language that was used to describe the Palestinian people was just totally racist. And the occupation of Palestine on the formation of the State of Israel was described as a land for a people without land. The idea being the Jewish people had no land, therefore they had to come there. And nobody lived there. There was nothing there. And it was sort of like it was kind of big empty space that just happened to have been made available. And that was the principle behind it, and that was the common discourse. And the Jewish land fund that was set up was indeed there to try to expand the settlements and so on. And when I became leader of the Labour Party, I was asked to sign a document one day. It was about a week after I'd become the leader of the party and leader of the opposition. It's an official position. And they said, will you sign this document to become a trustee? I said, a trustee of what? They said, well, everybody signs it. It's just a thing for the note paper. I said, what are you talking about? It was to be a trustee of the Jewish Land Fund. Oh. And I said, well, take it away. I'm not signing that. Of course I'm not. I have a totally different view to everybody else on this. And it's that sort of thing that pervades all the way through. But it has changed. Don't run away with the idea it hasn't. It has changed. It used to be that when we marched in demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people, I'm talking here 20, 30 years ago, they weren't huge. They were mostly older people, and mostly people that were very politically conscious. Good people, determined to do the right thing, good people. But they weren't huge. It wasn't the sort of popular feeling that it was. What I now see is hundreds of thousands of people marching, young, old, black, white, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, everybody. There is that great unity of support for Palestine in the same way there was eventually at the end, towards the end of the anti-apartheid campaign that brought together large numbers of people. So I think the political ramifications of all this, the politics are huge. Starmer Lamy, and before him Rishi Sunak and others, started off saying they wouldn't call for a ceasefire because Israel had a right of self-defense. What, to take water away from children, is that a right of self-defense? To burn down schools, is that a right of self-defense? And then we had a lot of ructions in Parliament about this, and a lot of demonstrations and so on, and gradually the language began to change. And eventually we then had this decision they would recognise Palestine. Well, I of course welcome the recognition of Palestine. I've always voted for it. I've always called for it. Of course I do. But unless you take it a stage further and say, well, if we recognise Palestine, then we recognise Palestine shouldn't be under foreign occupation. We then recognise that Palestine shouldn't be bombed with weapons that we are sending there. So there are a whole lot of other questions come as a result of that. So it is the last thing I'd say is on the cultural point and understanding of the psyche of what imperial powers do. If you haven't already read it, I recommend everyone to read Edward Said on Orientalism. Very, very intelligent, very, very deeply thought out book about the mentality of the intellectual thinking that denigrates a whole people. That's why he called the book Orientalism. And I just think people should begin to read and understand that, because understanding the history of it all is so important. And also, some of the great Palestinian poets will give you a fantastic understanding of the history of the struggle and the brilliance of the Palestinian people. And so, in the darkest and most desperate days, and they are the darkest and most desperate days for the Palestinian people, and the events of this week haven't improved things, they've actually made things in some ways more dangerous. Let's renew our efforts and redouble our efforts until we can actually say the Palestinian people are free.
Unfortunately, kind of start to wrap at this point in time, but I think we very invited if I did raise the question of the weaponizing of salvation in particular, in Gaza in particular, and the almost deliberate destruction of every life-saving, sustaining system in Gaza, the hospitals, the schools, everything else is being destroyed to make sure that they use those as weapons against the Palestinian people. How is Israel using this control and blocking of aid as a tool of war and demographic engineering?
If I want to describe the details of the Israeli crimes against the people of Gaza, I will need a few days. But in summary, let me tell you that what Israel is doing in Gaza is 3 terrible war crimes in parallel. The war crime of genocide, the war crime of collective punishment, including starvation, and the war crime of ethnic cleansing. If you look at the issue of genocide, the Israeli bombardment up till now killed more than 70,000 people, and maybe more if we count those who are still under the rubble, including 20,000 children or more. They've injured 165,000 people. If you put these numbers together, you're talking about 11% of the population of Gaza. Translate that into the population of South Africa, and you will be talking about 6 million people who would have been killed or injured during the course of these 2 years. I keep repeating that in every session. Translate that or apply that to the United States of America, the country of Mr. Trump, you would be talking about 33 million people killed or injured in the course of these 2 years. What would the United States have done if they lost 1 million people? Probably they would have destroyed the world. So that gives you an idea about the scope of genocide that is happening there. But it's not just the killing of the people by bombarding. They've destroyed 92% of all homes in Gaza. 92%. Can you imagine what that means? Can you imagine that your house, the house you live in, the house you put all your money, all your life in building, and then suddenly they tell you get out, or even don't tell you to get out, and they just bombard it and it's gone. It's awful. Everything you had in life is finished. Not only your house, your furniture, your books, your memories, everything is gone. During the course of this terrible war, they have attacked and destroyed largely 94% of all our hospitals. The organization that I helped found
46 years ago, which is Palestinian Medical Relief Society, has now at the moment, while we talk, we have 80 medical teams working in Gaza, from Gaza. And they help about 200,000 people every month. They treat them. During the last week, they destroyed 7 of our clinics. They bombarded our main centers in the city of Gaza. It took us 30 years to build these centers. These centers have some of the best services for the whole of Gaza Strip. The only lab in Gaza that can do certain tests that are not available anywhere else. They just destroyed it in a few minutes. The destruction is worth more than $4 million of these clinics alone. They killed 252 journalists, and they didn't allow a single foreign journalist to enter Gaza. They killed 1,723 of my colleagues, the doctors, the nurses, and the other health professionals who did not do any crime. They were just treating people. In addition to more than 500 health workers that they have arrested. Among them, 2 big specialists in Gaza, the head of obstetric gynecology and the head of traumatology, who both died under torture in Israeli prisons. One of my colleagues in medical relief, he went out to find or buy food for his family. He came back to find that his house vanished, his wife was killed, his daughter was killed, his 3 sisters were killed, his 2 brothers were killed, and his mother was killed. In one hit. And there is more than 2,000 families who have been erased totally from the civil record. Not a single person of them stayed alive. One of my colleagues from Al Jazeera told me that one of their journalists was killed, and they wanted to pay compensation to his family, his severance pay and so on. They couldn't find anybody from his family because they all vanished. So this is the scope of the crime that is happening in Gaza. And yes, these people, these criminals, these fascists that govern Israel think that they can eliminate the Palestinian people. And they use not only bombardment, but also biological warfare, by the way. When they deprive people of water, clean water, and deprive people from food, and depressed people's immunity, people got diseases. My colleagues tell me in Gaza that every month, every person gets sick 3 to 4 times. One doctor told me that he keeps taking Flagyl, which is an antibiotic, every day because he keeps getting infections. And add to that, the bombs that were thrown in Gaza, they threw on Gaza no less than 160,000 tons of explosives. This is 76 kilograms of explosives for each man, woman, and child. Can you believe that? It's more, Jeremy mentioned that, it's more than 8 times the explosive power of each of the nuclear heads that were thrown on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And these bombs leave in the soil and water of Gaza chemical material. They're destroying the environment. And that's why each one of us, each one of you, each person who believes in humanity must not stop for a moment till we stop this terrible genocide and save the people of Gaza.
Thank you. Closing remarks, Jeremy.
Thank you very much for all coming this evening, and I'm sorry that the conversation between my good friend Mustafa and myself was a bit late starting. He was doing stuff on Al Jazeera and I was doing stuff as well on the media because they wanted urgent comments, and I wanted to make sure things were happening back home in support of the flotilla, so I apologise for that. What I want to say is thank you for everything that you do to raise consciousness, aid and support for the Palestinian people in Gaza, and the incredible events that we've been involved in and witnessed this week, and this fantastic level of understanding and determination to bring about justice for the Palestinian people. I feel deeply honoured to have been invited to come here in South Africa for this week. I've really enjoyed the visit, it's been incredible, and tomorrow I'm going to Namibia for a couple of days because the Namibian government has also supported the ICJ case. I'm part of Progressive International, so I'll be carrying the same message there. And if you'll have me, I look forward to coming back.
With Mrs. Corbyn.
You what?
You need to come back with Mrs. Corbyn on holiday this time.
Oh, she would love to come. My wife Laura Alvarez is the international organizer for the Peace and Justice Project, and she at the moment is in Mexico doing work there, but we'll be together again at the weekend. But she would be very happy to come. We get along great, we're very happy together. The only problem is meal times. She's Mexican, they like chilies. I'm rather boring vegetarian who doesn't like spiced food. So we've compromised. We cook food without any spice, and she has this massive bowl of chili sauce beside her as she's eating, like that the whole time. It's the Mexican way.
It is the Mexican way. Thank you so much, both of you. Dr. Barghoti, closing comments?
Well, I am very proud of you. I'm very proud of the people of South Africa. And I'm very honored that we have had the chance to meet and talk here and in other places.
Of course.
And we believe in you, and we trust you will do everything you can to support the Palestinian people.
Don't we people?
Yes. And I want you to know, I tried to study the history of your struggle, and I learned from it. And I am sure, 100%, and be sure yourself, that like you have succeeded and overcome the terrible system of apartheid, we will also overcome. And there will be a day, and not long time from now, when we all celebrate the victory of Palestine.
Yes.
And when we all, I hope, celebrate together, not anywhere, but in Jerusalem, and hopefully in the Aqsa Mosque.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Thank you, Dr. Barghouti.
Well, and so we say that's correct. My sincere thanks goes on to all of you present here tonight, our listeners on Radio 76, viewers of Hilaal TV YouTube channel, as well as our viewers on Al Jazeera. We have heard a lot tonight, albeit advertising and really intolerant information, but we have heard a lot, and yes, we have learned even more. Hallelujah, continue the struggle to free the people of Gaza and Palestine will continue. I would also like to extend a special thanks to our distinguished guests here, Dr. Barghoti as well as Jeremy Corbyn. As a token of appreciation, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call upon Dr. Guldan Sabri to present a gift to our special guest here this evening. Can I call upon Sister Yumna or say it first, please?
Does Doctor want to eat after this? Does Doctor want food after this? Does Doctor want to eat something after this?
Yes, and I have to go, we have to set it up again because I have to go to Al Jazeera.
Dr. Ali Rahman. Our own material, Professor Yusuf Jidde. Well, this is for you, for your wife. And now I have to call upon the paparazzi. Mr. Jeremy Corbyn. Sir, will you remain behind, please? Dr. Barghoti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
It is a cherished custom of us in South Africa to win our special guests depart the shores of our country, that to give them something that is going to be etched in their lives, in their minds, and in their memory for many years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a commendation here that I'd like to call upon Megan Church to read out and to present our guests. Megan, for those that don't know, is someone that is dedicated. In fact, she's the epitome of resistance, the epitome of resisting the onslaught of the Palestinians, of the Israelis on the Palestinians. She's the epitome of exemplifying what increasing the awareness is all about. To that extent, I have to say with pain that she actually has been excommunicated from a Jewish community, being a Jewish person herself. Round of applause for Megan. I want to ask Megan, before presenting Jeremy Corbyn with this commendation, to read it out.
A commendation of honor presented to the Honourable Jeremy Corbyn for walking the path of truth when it was easier to be silent, for standing with the oppressed when it was safer to turn away, for lifting your voice so that the voiceless might be heard. You have carried the torch of justice across continents, shining light upon the struggles of the downtrodden and affirming the simple, eternal truth that every human being is born free and equal in dignity. In your steadfast defense of the Palestinian people, their right to freedom, their right to dignity, their right to return to the land of their ancestors, you have reminded the world that justice delayed is never justice denied. With abiding respect and gratitude, we honor you from all in the Republic of South Africa. This is from Al-Ikhlas Academia Library and Resource Center.
Thank you so much. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
From Al-Ikhlas Academia Library and Resource Center, a commendation of honor presented to Dr. Mustafa Barghouti in recognition of your unwavering courage, principled leadership, and lifelong struggle for the freedom, dignity, and self-determination of the Palestinian people. Your voice has been a beacon of truth in the face of injustice. Your commitment a shield for the oppressed, and your vision an inspiration to all who yearn for a just world. With steadfast resolve, you have stood on the front lines of resistance, unifying, educating, healing, and giving hope, while carrying the cause of Palestine into the conscience of humanity. Justice is the path to peace, and freedom the birthright of every nation. With abiding respect and gratitude, we honor you from all in the Republic of South Africa.
My gratitude also extends to our audience, to your good selves, our brothers and sisters from up north. The task of arranging this fundraising dinner. Our sincere thanks goes to all elegant caterers, most certainly who have done themselves more than good here tonight by providing us with our meals in a very organized way. I would also like to thank the young men and women who paraded around with our Yoko machines to raise those much needed, to those that have generously donated towards that. And finally, to our security and transport staff. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My profuse appreciation to your good self for staying in this late hour, your presence here, your contribution. Do have a safe journey home and enjoy the rest of the week. Jazakallah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good evening to one and all.
Together?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Please, can you stand here? Okay.
He wrote the words, his name is the Bard.